The race for the top office in Ohio is off to a fast start. Ahead on Face the State, the race for governor is about to get a little more crowded. Former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy will reportedly launch his campaign tomorrow, making it a three-person race so far on the Republican side. We're looking at how the race is shaping up with a longtime Republican strategist. Also, celebrating America's 250th birthday Ohio style, how the state is welcoming people to the party a year and a half early. Plus, the OSU 34 students were indicted nearly 60 years ago for taking over a building on the Ohio State campus and demanding change. This Black History Month, we look at why they did it and the difference they made for the students of today. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine cannot run for re-election in 2026 because of term limits. Ohioans won't elect a new governor to replace him for nearly 2 years, but the race is getting off to an early start with the field of contenders growing. A well-known name is now expected to enter the fray. The Associated Press is reporting former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy will kick off his bid for governor tomorrow evening with events in his hometown of Cincinnati and then here in central Ohio in New Albany. On February 14th, Ramaswamy's campaign filed what's called the Designation of Treasurer form with the Ohio Secretary of State's office. The form does not specifically say it's to run for governor, but it does allow the campaign to start receiving contributions and spending money.
The 39-year-old biotech entrepreneur and Ohio native made a national name for himself when he ran for president in 2024. Most recently, Ramaswamy served for a little while in President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, before leaving that post last month. He joins Attorney General Dave Yost in the race for the Republican nomination. Yost was reelected in 2022 while receiving more votes than any other attorney general in Ohio's history. A political strategist tells me Yost has a lot of support among Republican primary voters and donors. Heather Hill is also in the Republican race. She served on the Morgan Local School Board and was appointed by Governor DeWine to serve on the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Commission in 2023. And a wild card could be new Lieutenant Governor and former Ohio State football coach Jim Tressel. When 10 TV asked if he would run, he said he is focused on helping Governor DeWine in his final 2 years in office.
On the Democratic side, only one candidate has entered the race so far. That is Dr. Amy Acton, the former director of the Ohio Department of Health. She became well known for her role at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic as she joined Governor DeWine for daily news conferences and updates. After her service in the DeWine administration, Acton returned to the Columbus Foundation. The general election may not be until November 26th, but the primary is 15 months away in May of 26. Joining me to talk about the latest developments in the Republican race is longtime political strategist and consultant Terry Casey. So Terry, is this really an early start to the governor's race?
It is very, very early because normally people for a 26 election wait till the municipal elections in November to announce. So this is very, very early. And the other complicating or making it more interesting for reporters asking questions is we're right now in the middle of the final 3 or 4 months of the state budget cycle for the next 2 years. So questions are going to come up, and we won't bore the audience getting into the school foundation formula and property tax reductions and inside millage and all that. But when you run for governor, it's a lot more about specifics and details. Whereas if you're running for Senate or Congress, it's easier to speak in generalities nationally.
Is that because Ohio has so many basically regions within itself?
Well, that's another complication. Ohio is not just Columbus, Ohio and central Ohio. It's a big, very diverse state. So that adds to the problems because if you're going to run for governor, they expect the governor to make sure the roads are clear, the prisons are run correctly, the operations, the state facilities, the money that goes out to 600 different local school districts, all those things raise questions in all parts of Ohio.
As I mentioned, we're expecting Ramaswamy to roll out his campaign tomorrow. What does he bring to the race?
Well, he's obviously got star power from national things, and that's really important in a primary. But you've got to balance out because you want to win the primary, and you can appeal to the conservative base, but you've also got to not dig yourself in holes that creates problems in the general election in the fall. But again, governor is about specifics and details compared to some other offices where you can just speak to the base.
And, you know, Ramaswamy does have friends politically in the Republican Party across the country. He's gaining support from that, and he doesn't have to worry about funding.
Well, he can clearly write the check as he did in the presidential, and he can also attract money nationally because so many people know him from the presidential run, and also the involvement in the initial Doge thing and being so close and supportive of Trump.
What does Attorney General Dave Yost bring to the table that makes him perhaps a formidable campaigner and candidate?
Well, he'll say that he's better in the details. In fact, he'll point out as an example, when he was state auditor, he recommended several $100 million in changes, savings, things that could be done. But again, when you're governor of Ohio, you've got to operate with a balanced budget, and people always want more, whether it's schools, universities, hospitals, local governments. Everybody wants more money, but the state of Ohio doesn't have a printing press. It can't run up debts. You got to only spend what you have.
He's obviously based here in Central Ohio, in Columbus, with the state offices, but he has pretty good statewide name and face recognition, doesn't he?
Yes, being state auditor and attorney general, being an attorney general gives you a lot of chance for TV time because people want to ask about consumer fraud and different lawsuits that he's doing, that kind of thing. So he's got a lot of visibility, but Ramaswamy, particularly in a primary, has a real close connection to Trump, and that's important. But again, you got to win the primary, but you don't want to create too many problems that blow up on you in a general election.
How important would a Trump endorsement be in this campaign, or is it one of those wait and see things, you know, how his first year and a half in office goes?
Well, it obviously would be very, very important to look at the last two senators elected from Ohio, but we don't know how all the things are going to work out, including this past week that Trump wants to take over the post office. And you talk about issues that are tangled because there's fiscal problems in the post office, but how do you save that much money with that many employees? So the operating details get more challenging.
So Terry, as I mentioned, a wild card could be new Lieutenant Governor Jim Tressel. Talk about somebody who is very well known as the former Ohio State national championship winning football coach, but he just started in this race for Lieutenant Governor. I mean, not the race, but in his position as Lieutenant Governor. But people are already wondering if he's going to run. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if Ramaswamy and or Yost falter, he's definitely one of these break glass in emergency if you need to be. And in his announcement, he was very careful in saying he's focused on Lieutenant Governor. He kind of, as he did as football coach, he sometimes ducks the hard question, but that's actually smart in politics because sometimes you got to be savvy enough not to answer certain questions that are difficult or will get you in trouble.
Would he have the luxury of waiting? I mean, we are talking about how early this is all starting.
Well, because it is so early, until we get through the state's budget cycle around July 1st and we get into the end of summer, there's definitely time. And clearly Tressel's the kind of person that can raise money quickly. And again, it's if, and if.
Yeah.
But again, the good news for Republicans is they've got a lot of good options as candidates.
I was going to ask that about, you know, the strength of the candidate pool on the Republican side.
Right. And if you look at polling in terms of whether it's Yost, Ramaswamy, Tressel, they've all got some significant name ID. They've all got significant ability to raise money. The Democrats, obviously, as has been demonstrated in recent years, have not done that well statewide because their bench is so small or almost non-existent.
Only one on the Democratic side right now, Dr. Amy Acton. But do you expect more candidates to enter the race on the Republican side, considering the strength of the candidates that we're likely to be seeing after tomorrow?
I think it's pretty clear that the field is somewhat narrowed. Clearly, the main event right now is Yost versus Ramaswamy, no disrespect to the other lady. But those are the two main
Heather
ones.
Hill, yeah.
But the rest of the potential bench are lined up and moving, like the state auditor is going to be running for attorney general and the
musical
secretaries.
chairs.
Yes. So I think, except for state treasurer, most of the other people are in place. Obviously, either candidate for governor, not now, but at some point before the early February filing deadline, it's got to have a lieutenant governor running mate.
And briefly, we just have a few seconds left, but we saw how much money was spent in the Senate race between Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown. What do you expect as far as funding and spending for this?
It'll be good for the TV stations in terms of ad sales, but the question is, I mean, Ramaswamy clearly, personally, in his national fundraising base, has a much better opportunity to outspend Yost, and maybe that makes a difference, maybe it doesn't make a difference, because sometimes, if you remember President Jeb Bush, he had $130 million in 2016, but he didn't become president.
Yeah.
So money can be important, but message is also sometimes more important, and that's why if you want to run for governor, you got to have the specifics and the details down. People want to know.
Terry Casey, again, thank you for your insight on this.
Glad to be
Appreciate it.
here. Thank
All right.
you.
Well, still ahead on Face the State, America 250. Ohio is already celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States of America. How you can join in, have some fun, and learn something leading up to the big day in 2026. And later,
we were probably the third university that in the country in terms of what ended up being a takeover.
the Black History Makers on Ohio State's campus, but their fight for equal rights came with a price. This Black History Month, we look at how their bravery shaped the future for students today. Welcome back to Face the State. Americans will celebrate the country's semi-quincentennial on July 4th of 2026. It's easier just to say America's 250th birthday, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But Ohio is already celebrating the occasion by showcasing stories of Ohio's contributions to the United States. On Ohio Statehood Day on March 1st of 2022, Governor Mike DeWine announced the creation of the America 250 Ohio Commission. Since then, the 29 members and staff have been planning, developing, and rolling out ways Ohioans in all 88 counties can mark the occasion leading up to the big day. And you can do that right now by checking out hundreds of destinations through the Trails and Tales program. The Creativity Trail has more than 100 locations across the state celebrating the arts, including visual arts, music, literature, glass and pottery, even carousel art. Also, the Air and Space Trail celebrates Ohio's achievements in flight, of course, including the Wright brothers being first in flight and astronaut Neil Armstrong being the first to walk on the moon. There's a lot going on and a lot to celebrate, and with Ohio Statehood Day coming up, it seemed to be a good time to catch up on the efforts to celebrate. Joining me to talk about it all is America 250 Ohio Executive Director Todd Kleisman. Todd, thanks for being here today.
Great to be with you, Doug.
Guess it's never too early to start celebrating a big birthday, right?
That's right, and you did a great job pronouncing semi-quincentennial. That's quite a mouthful. So that's
I practiced, I'll be honest. I was like, I never heard that word before until this segment.
Terrific.
So, yeah, so what is the goal of America 250 Ohio, and what's the focus?
Sure. You know, of course, there is a national effort. This is Ohio's participation in the nation's 250th anniversary in 2026. So we're not just waiting around for 2026 to happen. We are launching programs and doing a lot to try to get Ohioans prepared and take full advantage of this major milestone and really bring people together. We think that's going to be a super important part of this. So we're doing a lot of things to plan, programs, projects, initiatives, all 88 counties. So we're really excited.
I mentioned a little bit about the Creativity Trail, and we have some more video we can show of that, but it's like 100 and some destinations around the state. What are we talking about here? What's involved?
Right, it's amazing. We're going to be focusing on highlighting a lot of these places around the state. These are destinations that lend themselves to really Ohio's strengths. What did Ohio bring to the national conversation, so to speak? And so Air and Space, you know, a lot of these places here, Ohioans will already know about the places like the Armstrong Air and Space Museum and the NASA Glenn facilities, you know, the Wright brothers, all of those places. In creativity, you know, we have a lot of like art museums and, you know, places like you might not expect, like the Ohio State House, the Ohio History Center. There's, you know, the Thurber House here in Columbus. There's a lot of places here that lend themselves to the creative expression that Ohioans have really brought to the nation.
And it's looking at a lot of different forms of, you know, art and artwork as well, visual, music.
Right,
and
it is.
pottery, glass. You mentioned that.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of different ways we're coming at this. We have 6 different categories, and I think a fun one that wouldn't be expected is carousel art.
Yeah.
So we have, I think, about 22 different places in Ohio that are on the Creativity Trail, where, you know, places like Mansfield, Sandusky, the list goes on. There's a lot there that you probably wouldn't expect. So we're coming at this in a way that I think will be fun as well as informative to Ohioans.
So it is something that people can check out, but also maybe learn something, because you're kind of looking at the history also going back 250 years.
We sure are, yeah. And Ohio has a number of touch points to the American Revolutionary War era. So we'll definitely lean into those places. You know, there are more than 7,000 Revolutionary War veterans that are buried in the state of Ohio. They wouldn't have started in Ohio, but they ended up here for various reasons. So we want to better help tell those stories. Of course, we have the Air and Space Trail and Creativity Trail. We're going to do a total of 6 different, what we call the Trails and Tales effort.
Are those the two main ones right now, the creativity?
Those are the
and
2
air
that
and
have so
space?
far launched. We'll do a total of 6 of them. These are the important destinations that exist here in Ohio, and we'll package these together for tourism purposes.
We're looking at some of the Air and Space Trail video right now, and of course people know about the Wright brothers. They know about Neil Armstrong, but this also looks at some of maybe of the lesser known folks who've played an important role in flight and space.
That's right, yeah. So we have a lot of places all around Ohio, every region of Ohio, and so we really want to spotlight those places as well. Big places, small places, and that's, I think, part of what we're trying to do in the big picture for America 250 is the places that you would expect to see and those touch points to the American Revolutionary War era, but also a lot of undertold stories, you know, some of the places that weren't necessarily in the highlight reels of history. So Ohio has a lot of them in abundance, and so part of what we're trying to do is shine a light on some of those places.
Will there be an actual, I mean, you know, obviously towns and cities around the state are going to have fireworks celebrations and everything. It is the 4th of July
Right.
after all, but is there going to be a big coordinated Ohio 250 celebration on the 4th of 2026?
Yeah, a lot of these things are already going to play themselves out locally. There will be those fireworks celebrations you talked about. I think all over the state of Ohio there's going to be not just 2 or 3 big things, but lots, dozens, maybe thousands of things going on around the state. And so what we're going to try to do is help support those initiatives in ways that are creative and things that lean into this America 250 approach that we're coming at.
And we can also show the website for your organization.
Please
And
do.
you know, is that the best way for people to get information, learn about the different initiatives, and find out maybe where
Right.
locations are near them?
Yeah, right. The team has done a great job with our website. It is America250ohio.org. And yeah, we do try to put as much content on the website as we can. So that's where your viewers can learn more about the commission, about the different initiatives. We got educational efforts underway. We also have a big undertaking. We call it Ohio Goes to the Movies. And, you know, Governor DeWine has been super supportive of that. That is an effort where we're going to showcase what Ohio has contributed to film over the years. So that's really important. That's going to be one of the bigger undertakings that we do across Ohio. We're going to have all 88 counties participating, and so you can find out more at ohiogoestothemovies.org there.
And I believe Beverly D'Angelo, who's the famous actor who was in
Right.
the Vacation movies with Chevy Chase, is also helping to promote that as well. And she's from
Is-
Columbus.
Right, yeah, she's in the trailer along with Governor DeWine, so you can find that online, but hopefully your viewers can also see that at the movie theaters.
Yes, all right. Real quick, ultimate goal for this project leading up to 2026?
This is a great time for Ohio to really showcase what Ohio has brought to the nation. So very early on with those American Revolutionary War settlers that came to the state of Ohio, the Northwest Ordinance. So we're going to leave it all out on the field in 2026. Ohioans can get involved in a number of ways. That website is the best way to kind of learn about what we're up to and how you can participate.
Todd Kleisman with the America 250 Ohio. Thank you so much for letting us know what's going on leading up to the big day in a year and a half.
My pleasure.
Take care, sir.
Yeah, thanks,
Next on Face the State, the OSU 34, a lasting impact nearly 6 decades later. How the experiences of some black students on Ohio State's campus all those years ago helped shape the experience for students now. More than 5 decades ago, a student protest on the Ohio State University's campus forever shaped the higher education experience for Black students. As we celebrate Black History Month, 10 TV's Kevin Landers takes us back to 1968 to show how a group called the OSU 34 made history.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
The assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968 swept the nation into a frenzy of grief and anger.
And it was just heartbreaking. I didn't cry, but it was extremely deep and sad for me.
Lakita Henry was an OSU freshman. She remembers the hurt she felt about the tragedy while riding on a bus with friends.
We weren't being loud or rude, but there was a firm, righteous anger.
She says when the bus driver overheard them talking, he ordered them off the bus.
And we said, why do we have to get off the bus? And he said, because I don't want to hear that talk.
So they filed a report at the University Police Department. By then, word spread.
That little police station was packed. Most of the people were standing outside.
On April 26, 1968, a few days after that bus incident, OSU's Black Student Union had already planned on meeting with administrators here at Bricker Hall to talk about inequalities on campus. Their demands included more Black professors, increased Black enrollment, and the establishment of an African American Studies program, to name a few. John Evans was the unofficial spokesperson of the Black Student Union.
We wanted a Black Studies program, of course. We wanted fair housing, because, the housing at Ohio State was horrible.
About 40 to 50 students took over a room inside the administration building. It wasn't just Black students.
It was packed, and it was packed with primarily white students. We were probably the third university that in the country, in terms of what ended up being a takeover.
Evans says at first administrators weren't interested in listening to students' demands.
Then they said, well, the meeting is adjourned, and I said that the meeting is not adjourned until we say it's adjourned. And then things got really, really heated.
White students locked the doors to Bricker Hall. The National Guard was put on alert.
We were upset because we were just being ignored. We were really being ignored by the university, like that we didn't have any valid complaints.
The negotiations lasted 10 hours. What transpired led to wholesale changes at Ohio State from the top down, but it came with a price.
I was one of the 34 indicted.
We got charged with kidnapping, and then the misdemeanor was menacing threats.
7 students were expelled.
We spent 14 months in court on that case, and we ended up pleading guilty to the menacing.
The 26th of April, 1968.
57 years later, Evans and Henry and the rest of the OSU 34 remain proud of their efforts to change the Black experience on the OSU campus. Never did they imagine a Black president would lead Ohio State when former President Michael Drake took the job in 2014 and later met with the group for their 50th anniversary of their protest. Today, their goal is for the university to honor them with a plaque or statue so other students will know the story of the OSU 34. The university says it's under consideration. Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you next Sunday at 11:30.